The road to the Unidome officially begins this week. 16 teams left across all 7 classes, and we are your number one spot to check everything and anything out. Postseason edition. Nick and I here in studio. I'll see if I can get Nick pulled up right here. Nick, man, it's playoff time finally.
Yeah, last week was a crazy week to finish the regular season for those big classes. And some pretty interesting games happened with the first round for the lower classes, too. So I think it'll be another really exciting week if it can be anything close to what happened last week.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate everyone joining us on the live last Friday night. Feels like forever ago, but it really wasn't. We took a stab at predicting some pods, got some stuff right, got a lot of stuff wrong, but that's the fun thing. Appreciate everyone that joined us for them. Some quick announcements before Nick and I get going for Locks and Dogs. Obviously, today we got that coming your way. And also today on Rockfin, we got playoff picks. Myself, our ranker, and Dana Becker giving you picks across all 7 classes. So 3 different sets of opinions. I went through and kind of looked at how we did last week. Not too bad. Definitely some upsets that we missed. But pretty spot on. So if you want our opinions, that is over on Rockfin for our subscribers. Appreciate everyone that subscribed over there. And as you can see, tomorrow we've got version 3 of positional rankings. Again, that is quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, O-line, D-line are mixed together, and then linebackers and DBs. We've got 10 ranked across all 7 classes, something that I'm not sure I've seen it done anywhere else. A lot of work went into that, so appreciate everyone that's helped us out. But again, that's version 3. We're going to get finalists for Mr. IAfootball coming soon. Ton of stuff coming your way, ton of playoff picks, playoff predictions, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's right here at IA Sports on YouTube and IAfootball across all socials. Appreciate all the new follows. It's been going crazy as of late, and we've got more stuff coming your way. Let's look at how we did last week on the Locks and Dogs. And as you can see, we try to signify that the gold is double points. We want to do double points for playoffs. So if you bold the bold team names, or if your team won, so you can see how we kind of did there. Nick had a good week. Nick's right back into it. 5 points down. I'm 62-1 on locks. He's 61-2, and then I'm 28-35 on dogs, and he is 27-36. Again, these are going off the IAfootball polls, so it's not going off your playoff seed. These are going off our in-house poll. So if you're curious on that, you can go check it out. Also on YouTube, we went through and kind of picked pods and decided which pods were the toughest in each class. You can go through and check that out on YouTube. A lot of stuff for you to check out and keep you entertained as we approach Friday's kickoff. Let's get going on the Locks and Dogs, though. Starting in Class 5A, I guess first off, if you're curious on how Nick and I have done against the on the dog side of things, you can see here. It looks like my best class is still Class 4A. Nick really struggling in 8-man and A, but man, he is money on 2A, 6-3, and then pretty good in the higher classes too. So you can kind of get an idea of where we're at on this side of things. Pretty fun to check out. But we'll get going on the Class 5A side of things. I'm rolling with Valley as my lock. They get Sioux City East right away. Really interesting pod here with Johnson. I think it's going to be a ton of fun to keep track of. But I've got Valley here over Sioux City East. This is a squad that's looked really good. 2 blemishes on their schedule, both 3-point losses, one to Dowling and one recently to Ankeny. Valley looking to get healthy, but we know what they bring to the table. A potent offense, a really strong defense, tons of playmakers. One of the title favorites, there's no doubt. I guess, Nick, we forgot our paper. You want to run and grab it quick? Yeah. Nick will go grab it. We do have something for you guys. Nick's going to go grab it. But I'll continue. Valley as my lock, going with them over Sioux City East, picking them to get a win. And my dog, I believe Ankeny is one or two teams or 1 or 2 points lower than Linmar in the poll. I'm going to go with Ankeny, looking for them to get healthy as well. I've seen Luke Anderson in person. When you think of Ankeny, you think of the running backs, you think of the running game, and you think of a really potent defense. So I'm going with Ankeny to pull off an upset at home in that doubleheader at Ankeny, which is going to be a ton of fun. And speaking of, I'm going to go out of this scene quick before I get to you, Nick. Don't worry, I will get it to you. But Nick and I, with the 16-team poll, these are our state title predictions, okay? So on this sheet, Nick and I wrote down each class who we have winning it and who we have in the state title. So I'll probably put it up on the wall, but right now I'm gonna set it here, and it's gonna be here every time you see us posting a video. And once these state title games roll around, we're gonna open that and see how we did. Figured we'd do that now with the 16 team or with the 16 brackets in each class. So it's gonna be fun to follow. We'll see how well we do in a few weeks.
Yeah,
not too confident after how things have gone lately, but who knows? It'll be fun to keep track of. Drop yours in the comments, and we'll see how you do as well. But Nick, I will hand it off to you for your 5A picks.
All right, my lock for Class 5A this week, I've got the Johnston Dragons. They're taking on Waterloo West. Johnston, they've been really, really good in the CIML, which we've known to be one of the toughest conferences in 5A. Nothing against Waterloo West here. They got a pretty big win against Ottumwa last week, 28-21. A little bit spotty here in the last 5 weeks. That's when got all 3 of their losses this season. Like I said, nothing against Waterloo West. It's just that Johnston is a really good team. I think that they could potentially be a dome caliber team. I'll be looking for Johnston to get the win in that one against Waterloo West. And my dog for this week, I've got Southeast Polk taking on the Pleasant Valley Spartans. Southeast Polk, they've got Holden Hanson up there at quarterback. He's got over 1,500 passing yards and 14 touchdowns. I watched their game against Dowling a couple weeks ago, and they lost in a 1 point. It was 35-34. It was really dramatic, close, neck and neck all the way through. And unfortunately, Sam Zelenovich, he went down with an injury that game, and they still hung tough with a really, really good Maroons team. I was very impressed. And I think this could be a sneaky team to make the Dome this year. I think that they have a solid pod. They're going to have to work hard for it, but if they can get through this first big test against Pleasant Valley, I think they could have a lot of confidence going forward to make a Dome run. So give me Southeast Polk as my dog for this week in 5A.
Like it, yeah. Johnson and Valley with a possible matchup to go to the Unidome would be a ton of fun to follow if that were the case. We'll move on to Class 4A, though. I'm rolling with the top seed as my lock, North Polk, the Comets. I got a chance to see them just in person last Friday. Super impressed. Nathan Feldman, dual threat quarterback, 600-plus passing yards, 1,300 rushing yards, and he's got 27 total touchdowns. BJ Tate, extremely efficient running the football as well. He's got 855 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns himself. The defense for North Polk, though, man, it has just been absolutely lights out. Allowed 20-plus points to Indianola just a few weeks ago, but besides that, it's been since week 2 since they've allowed that 20-plus point margin. They've got wins over Humboldt. They've got wins over Indianola, Ballard, Boone, ADM, Bondurant. It's an impressive resume for the top-seeded Comets, and I'm taking them to open their postseason with a win over Fort Dodge. And my dog, let me tell you, the 4A Dogs, I really had a tough time. I went back and forth on a lot of things. I do not like picking against Norwalk. I think Norwalk is one of the hottest teams in the class. They have a win over Lewis Central very, very recently. But I'm going to go with Xavier. 3 losses on the year for the Saints, 2 by 4 points and 1 by 2 points. And those are all to ranked teams, Western Dubuque, Pella, and Clear Creek and Manna. So I like Xavier. Obviously, you like the way they play football. Knowing Xavier, Cash Parks has been really solid at quarterback, and Carter Hoffman has eclipsed 1,000 yards rushing the football, almost 7 yards a carry for the junior Carter Hoffman. Defense has been solid. It always is. And Xavier, Jack Stevenson leading the way in tackles. Xavier Norwalk, I think it's going to be one of the more highly anticipated opening round games, if you could call it. Two teams ranked very closely in our poll. This one could go either way. No doubt, I do enjoy Norwalk a lot, but I'm going with Xavier here.
All right, my lock for this week in Class 4A, I'm going with ADM, another team that you just went to go see. They're playing Spencer in round 1.
Road game.
Yeah, it is a road game. This is ADM and Spencer. They have not played each other in over a decade. So for time in a long time that they've played. ADM, one of those teams that lost a lot of stars from last year, and you kind of had a lot of question marks surrounding them if they were going to be a good team And they've wiped those away. Just their second loss of the season came at the hands of the number one team, North Polk, who we just talked about. I think this is a really, really good team. Hudson Scholl has been leading the way at quarterback. He's got 1,200 passing yards and 12 touchdowns through the air. So I like ADM in this one. I think they can get a really good bounce back win. So yeah, going 80 there. My dog this week, like Cade said, this was a really tough week to pick dogs for 4A. There's a lot of really good matchups, tough to call games, but I'm going with Western Dubuque over North Scott. Western Dubuque has kind of just had an on and off year. They're 6-3 on the year. The most recent loss was to Cedar Rapids Xavier. That was 4 weeks ago now. And Western Dubuque, one of only 2 teams this season to beat North Scott. But that was way earlier in the year, if I'm correct. That was week 4. So it's been a while since these two have seen each other. But like I said, only 2 teams have been able to beat North Scott, and Western Dubuque was one of them. You can't talk about Western Dubuque without talking about Tanner Anderson. He's been a stellar quarterback for them, 1,100 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 1 on the ground for him. And I want to talk about the sophomore running back, Drew Bergfeld, 888 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on the year for them. Young guy putting in the work in the backfield. Bobcats, I think they are a really good team and possibly underrated, and I guess we'll see in this one. Give me Western Dubuque over North Scott.
Yeah, a lot of rematches throughout the year, or throughout the opening rounds, and that is one of them, Western Dubuque and North Scott. Move on to Class 3A, where I'm picking one of the rematches as my lock. Sergeant Bluff Luton over MOC Floyd Valley. MOC Floyd Valley, what a win last week to really solidify themselves into the postseason. I'm a big fan of them. But SBL, man, this team's been untouchable this year. Undefeated, one of the few undefeated. I believe 16 undefeated teams remain across the entire state. They are one of them. They've got some close wins in here. Last week, 28-21 over Sioux Center. But besides that, man, this team's got some marquee wins. 42-0 over Harlan. Last time they played at MOC was 45-21. They beat Carroll 21-0. Heelan 42-23. So this team's had some tests, and they've passed them all to this point. Looking to pass another against a familiar foe in MOC this week. One of the better rushing teams in all of Class 3A. 3,125 team rushing yards, averaging 7.7 yards per carry. How about Ryan Hewson, the sophomore? 10 yards a carry on 800 rushing yards. Do the math. That is extremely effective. 37 rushing touchdowns for this team. Defense has been super strong as well. Bo Kodum, 36 tackles. Joe Hardy, 10 tackles for loss, leading the way for SBL, taking them to get a win over MOC to start off their postseason. And my dog, going with Harlan. Last loss they took was in week 5 to 1 point, or by 1 point to Creston. Since then, 4 straight wins, including a nice one over Nevada by 3, which kind of helped really put themselves in the postseason hunt. And here they are, entering postseason play against Algona with really what I think is a underrated 3-headed monster. Gabe Arkfeld at quarterback, Lucas Francis rushing the ball, 800 yards rushing for him, and then Joseph Rees, 910 receiving yards. Over half of Gabe Arkfeld's passing yards have gone to Mr. Rees, so you can bet that game plan is going to be true this week as well. Going to find the way to get Mr. Rees the football in the open field as much as possible. And Bryce Van Baile, whichever way you say it, 74.5 total tackles for him, leading the way for Harlan. A team that's played really well as of late. Team you'd never want to see in the postseason, knowing Harlan community and how they play in the playoffs, and they get to go to Algona to open their pod play. I think this is an underrated matchup. I think it's going to be super fun. I could see it a little more low scoring, just kind of how these offenses play. But I think it's going to be a really good one, and I'll take Harlan and a little bit of an upset over Algona.
All right, my lock for 3A, I'm going with Wahlert over Assumption. Wahlert kind of came out of nowhere. They were preseason unranked, and they have skyrocketed up to number 1 here in the previous week. And they're undefeated, like Cade said, one of those very few undefeated teams in the state. And I mean, it's been pretty dominant. I mean, other than their game against Independence, which ended in 17-10, And they kept it close with West Delaware in a 17-14 game. Wahlert has looked really, really good, like one of the best teams in the class. Assumption snuck in there in that very last spot in the playoffs with that district runner-up that they got, which unfortunately bounced Grinnell, a really good team out. Shout out to Grinnell, man. That's like I think you said this during the live stream. It's just a heartbreaking way to lose your season. But Assumption's in, and all credit to Assumption. They started the year 0-4, and they have come back to finish the season 4-5, and they're in the playoffs. So they've worked really hard to get into the spot that they're in. But I really like the Golden Eagles. I think one of the best in the playoffs. Give me Wahlert for the win. And my dog for this week, arguably the biggest matchup in the 3A playoffs this week, Williamsburg going up against Independence. This is a really tough draw for Independence. Williamsburg is a really, really good team. They fell a huge upset against Benton, 21-0 last week, which knocked them off the number 1 spot in our polls. This is a marquee quarterback matchup. Grant Hawker, who has been statistically one of the best quarterbacks in the class, against E.J. Miller, who we know to be one of the best quarterbacks in 3A. This is going to be a really fun game. I couldn't really tell you which way this goes. This could either be a really high-scoring matchup, or I personally think that this could be kind of right in the middle there, 17-21, something like that, something close. But I got Williamsburg taking this big upset.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I think that is the biggest matchup across the Class 3A slate this week. And, Williamsburg falling in the final week put them on the road. And now they got to go to Indy and try and knock off a really good Independence team. Been a fan of covering them all season long. We'll move on to Class 2A, though, where I'm rocking with PCM. Man, PCM, what a year for the Mustangs. Undefeated. And let me tell you, there's really not a close game. Closest game on here was a 23-point win over Nevada, who's ranked a class ahead of them. Besides that, I mean, it's blowout city, 40-plus, 30-plus, 50-plus wins all across the board. This team has not played a close game in a long time, and they're looking to keep that this week if they can play to their strengths. Two-headed monster on the offensive side is kind of the big story with PCM. Gavin Van Gorp, 1,200 passing yards, 25 touchdowns. How about 1 interception? He's got a passer rating of 270 right now, which is crazy. And then Adrian Robbins, 1,600 rushing yards on 10 yards per carry. Every time he touches the ball, he's getting a first down, which is crazy in itself. 20 rushing touchdowns for him. That's the two-headed monster. Defensively, too, they got some guys. Trenner Van Dyke, how about 17 TFLs for the senior defensive lineman? He has been incredible. This team has they've allowed double-digit points against them twice, and that was last week against Des Moines Christian and then week 1 against Sigourney Keota. Besides that, shutouts or single digits on their defense. So not only can the offense score at a high level, which is put up 40, 50-plus points every single week besides that week against Nevada, but the defense is stout as well. They get Greene County at home. PCM looking to punch their ticket to the quarterfinals. And I'm going with Anamosa as my dog. Coming off a really, really thrilling win over Waukon. Anamosa, the Blue Raiders, winners of 4 in a row. Last loss was to West Liberty, but since then wins over Tipton, Comanche, Northeast, and then Waukon. Here they get West Burlington. Tough matchup. West Burlington, been a fan of following Quincy Collins and that team. They've played extremely well, but I do like Anamosa in this one as a dog. Vince Deers, 1,600 passing yards, and then Austin Scranton, the other side of that, 1,300 rushing yards. This team's extremely effective on offense, extremely effective on defense, and they're playing very well at the right time. How about Austin Scranton and Aiden Antonelli, 14 and 17.5 TFLs, respectively, for each. So a lot of playmakers on both sides of the ball. I like Anamosa in a little bit of an upset here.
All right, my lock for this week, I'm picking on a game 1 year later, back in this situation, win or go home between Central Line, George Little Rock, and Kemper Catholic. Scripts are flipped a little bit here with Kemper being favored this time around. Last year, the Lions sent Kemper packing. That punched their ticket to the Dome last year and eventually what would be the state runner-up for them. Kemper's looking for revenge. They have been really good this year, just falling once at the very beginning of the year to Bishop Heelan. and they have not looked back since. Brock Bading, one of the best quarterbacks in the class, 1,800 passing yards, 18 passing touchdowns. I was looking at his rushing yards there. I went to watch Kemper Catholic against Des Moines Christian a few weeks ago, and it was a pretty close matchup with Des Moines Christian. They put up a good fight, but I really like the Knights this year. I do think that they're one of the better teams in this class, and 2A is just loaded at the top. Tons of really talented, really, really good teams, and it's going to be a bloodbath to try and get to the Dome. And I think Kemper could be one of those teams that makes it to the Dome. So give me Kemper Catholic to win in that one. And my dog, 2A, is very, very tough to pick from this week. And my pick for my dog is West Marshall over Van Meter. West Marshall's going up against a historically great playoff team, a historically great football team in Van Meter. It's been no different for them this year. They're 8-1. But the Trojans have had a really good season. Their most recent loss was to PCM, who we know to be one of the best in the class. But I think that West Marshall has the personnel to pull off an upset like this, like Vincent Clausen, their quarterback. He's got over 1,000 passing yards, 9 touchdowns through the air, 5 touchdowns on the ground. They have Michael Lechner. I'm sorry if I just said your name wrong. 8.5 tackles for loss on the season, 67.5 total tackles. I think West Marshall, if there's going to be an upset anywhere in this 2A mess, I think West Marshall could be the one to do it.
Last time Nick winning against Van Meter. It was a while ago.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. We know what happened. Move on to Class 1A, rolling with Dyke New Hartford as my lock. The second best team in Class 1A, in my humble opinion. A loss to Grundy Center week 1. Besides that, perfect. And the closest game they've played since week 1 was 27 points, and that was a victory over West Branch in week 2. The Wolverines are playing extremely well at this point in the year. Colin Meeser approaching 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And Noah Borcherding, 1,100 rushing yards and 19 rushing touchdowns for him. Defense has been outstanding, up to the Dyke New Hartford standard. Man, every year this team has just an incredible defense. They've allowed double-digit points just once besides that week 1 loss, and that was to Denver when they won 57-13. Besides that, looks like 4 shutouts to their name to this point, and they're looking to keep that rolling against a South Hamilton team. Excuse me. Give me Dyke New Hartford this week to pick up a win. And my dog, I think this is underrated, one of the best games in Class 1A this week. Regina Catholic and Woodward Granger, 2 top 10 teams, I believe, off the top of my head. This is number 7 and number 6, something like that. 2 top 10 teams for sure. Regina Catholic bounced back from their loss to Beckman Catholic with 2 wins over Wilton and then last week over Pleasantville. This team is playing well at this point. They've got stars on both sides of the football. Kyle Tracy at quarterback. Savion Miller, the sophomore running back, has had an incredible year. Tate Wallace leading the way receiving, and the defense has had plenty of stars as well. Will Aitchison, 57 tackles for him. Noah Clark leading the way with 8.5 TFLs. I think this Regina team is a contender, even though they're going on the road. I think this pod is extremely loaded with talent in Class 1A that they find themselves in. But I think Regina Catholic could definitely find a way to get themselves out of it and into the Unidome. It starts with this week, though, with a tough road trip to Woodward Granger. The Hawks have been playing extremely well, and they're definitely one of the better teams in the class as well. So this is going to be a ton of fun to follow. Excited to see that score updating on my Twitter on Friday night.
All right, my lock for this week, I actually just made a switch. I won't say who I had before.
Oh, wow.
But last minute, I decided to switch it up. I'm going to go with...
That says on the screen who you had before.
Well,
he's pump faking.
Well, I just think, looking at that game, it might be closer than I originally thought. But I'm going to go with Manson Northwest Webster going up against Sumner Fredericksburg. Manson Northwest Webster, if you might remember, one of my dog picks from a couple weeks ago, up against Emmitsburg to win the district title. I think this is a really underrated team in this class. They're taking on Sumner Fredericksburg. who squeaked out a 12-0 win against Beckman Catholic last week. And I think the Cougars are out here to advance even further into the playoffs. Camden Berkey, I hope I'm saying that right, 51.5 tackles, 2 interceptions on the year, and 1.5 tackles for loss for him. Very impressive year for him so far. I don't know, man. I think the Emmitsburg game is going to be really close. Sorry to Emmitsburg fans. It's nothing personal, but South Hardin's a good team, and I don't know. It's going to be close. My dog pick
gut choice
is just a last-second gut choice, I guess. And my dog for this week, I've picked from this game before, Hinton versus OABCIG. Last time I picked Hinton. It worked out. They won 19-13. This time around, I'm going to go with OABCIG to get some revenge and to get the win. Bryson Kohler, their quarterback, he's coming close to 1,700 passing yards on the season with 15 touchdowns. Falcons, they're 7-2. I think that they're better than their record shows. Their most recent loss was to Hinton just a few weeks ago, but I don't know, man. I've just got a feeling about this OABCIG team. They've got a great history, and I've got them pulling off a huge upset this time around against the Blackhawks.
Dig it. Listening to your gut. Pump fake in the final minute.
I kind of feel bad, but
saying I'm not going to say who.
It's all business.
Not going to say who I changed to as it's on the screen. That was funny. We'll move on to Class A. Rolling with, let's see what I got here. Oh, I meant to switch this. Oh, I got this mixed around. Whoops. I'm going to have to make a pump fake here too. Nick, I realized I wrote this incorrectly. I'm going with Pekin. I'll just roll with it. I'm going with Pekin as my dog. I mistyped this. I am sorry. Pekin and Madrid in one of the biggest games in the Class A scene, number 6 at number 4 this week. I'm going to roll with Pekin. 2 do-it-all quarterbacks in this one. Will Adam for Pekin and obviously Preston Wicker with Madrid. Both lead their team in passing. Both lead their team in rushing. These guys are one-man wrecking crews, and you can expect them to have the ball in their hands a lot this week. Pekin, though, gosh, I'm a huge fan of Madrid. I've been following them all year, been a fan of what they do, but something with Pekin, man, this team is just a little different. This is the team that's kept it closest with Lisbon all year long, which says a lot because Lisbon has just been on a tear all year. And Pekin going on the road to Madrid, I just think this team has something to prove, and I'm rolling with the Panthers in this one. So that's my dog. I did type that incorrectly. Nick, I'm going to hand it off to you quick while I go find my lock while you kind of talk about your picks here.
All right, my lock for this week, I'm going with ACGC. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're the wire-to-wire number 1 team in the IAfootball rankings. Undefeated, 9-0. And they take on Mount Ayr, which I picked as Mount Ayr. Sorry, I tried to make it too fancy. They were my dog pick last week, and it worked out for me. That was my only playoff pick I got right. But unfortunately, the Chargers are just so good. They beat Mount Ayr just a few weeks ago, 40-14. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say here. I think the Chargers are the best team in this class, and I think they will prove it yet again in this round of the playoffs. My dog for this class, I'm going to go with another dog matchup, picking on a game that happened earlier this year, Woodbury Central and Galen Catholic. I'm going to go with the Wildcats here. They lost in a 1-point heartbreaker to Galen back in September. However, I think this time around, Woodbury Central, I think they can do it. They lost to Tri-Center a couple weeks ago. That's a dog pick that I picked there. This is a team I've talked about before. Jackson.
See, we've done this. We've done the third time.
I think so. I forget every time.
Verscore.
There you go. I was going to get there. I feel terrible now. I promise I care. I just forget. I'm just a forgetful guy. 1,500 passing yards on the year for him, 17 touchdowns. This guy has been a sensation for the Wildcats. I think he'll continue that here and show us that he's got some playoff potential too for Woodbury Central. Big upset. Give me the Wildcats to upset the Jays.
I will just keep it simple. I'll go with Lisbon as my lock. Pekin obviously being the one team that kept it close with Lisbon. So I'll go with the Lions, who get Bellevue this week. Man, Lisbon took down a Starmont team who I thought was pretty good, and they took them down 49-0. Lisbon is just – they're one of my favorites in Class A right now, if I'm being totally honest with you. Dakota Clark's been phenomenal. Tiernan Boots, 1,400 rushing yards, 25 rushing touchdowns. Dakota Clark adds 15 rushing touchdowns himself. Defense has been phenomenal. Jacob Walarius, got to be up there in the Class A Mr. IAfootball nominees in terms of defensive guys. 74.5 tackles, 11 TFLs for the senior. The Lisbon defense has just been phenomenal. Allowed double-digit points one time this year, and it was 15 to Pekin, which I've talked about. 5 shutouts to their name. This point, looking to add another. Bellevue, solid team though. Cal Boniface has been effective at quarterback. Keenan Kilberg, one of the better receivers in all of Class A. He's approaching 1,000 receiving yards. I think it's going to be a good game, but man, Lisbon's just hard to pick against at this point. So I am, I'm going to roll with Lisbon in this one as we will move on to Class 8. Man, Nick, you got yours ready?
Yeah, I've got mine ready for 8-man. My lock for this week, I'm going with Bishop Garrigan, a team that has gone 9-0 straight through the regular season, perfect, and they take on Riceville this week, who also had a very respectable, very good year this year. They finished 8-1. The key for the Golden Bears here, which I love that mascot, it's a great mascot. They're gonna have to contain Jack Adams, quarterback. He's got some great passing numbers, 753 yards. 17 touchdowns. However, he is a much bigger threat with his legs. He's got over 1,000 rushing yards and 23 touchdowns on the ground. So the key for Bishop Garrigan to win this one will be to contain him and just keep this offense doing what it's been doing all year, which is ground and pound. They have tons of running backs in there who have gotten tons of yards and several touchdowns respectively, but specifically for Bishop Garrigan, their guy they've gone to is Trayton Sink. I hope I said that right. 919 rushing yards and 20 touchdowns on the year for him. So that's my pick for my lock this week, Bishop Garrigan, and my dog. Really big game for 8-man. And
that pod in general.
That pod is just loaded with some of the best teams in the class. I'm going to go with Iowa Valley to beat Gladbrook Rhinebeck. It's really hard for me to not bet on Nolan Kriegel here, the sophomore standout. We've posted about him before. He's got to be up there, hopefully, for that Mr. IAfootball. He has been stellar. 1,700 rushing yards, 36 touchdowns on the ground, as well as over 1,000 passing yards and 18 passing touchdowns. He's just a dude. There's no other way to say it. He's one of the best in the class. Gladbrook Rhinebeck, another really good team. That's a tough draw for both of these teams. But at the end of the day, I've got the Tigers to pull this one out.
There you go. There you have it. My lock, I'm rolling with Lennox this week over Arweva. Lennox has just been on a tear all year, perfect to this point. Not a lot of close games. Closest one I'm seeing off the top is 42-14 over Bedford, 60-28 over Lamoni. Other than that, this team has just been on a roll, and it's through the air, through the ground, whatever it is. Gabe Funk, 1,000 passing yards. He just eclipsed 17 passing touchdowns, only 1 interception. He also adds 18 rushing touchdowns to his name. And Jordan Martin England, 700-plus rushing yards for him and 17 rushing touchdowns. This team's been phenomenal. They're up there in terms of title favorites. They have to be. Defense has been phenomenal as well. Multiple guys, 3 guys I see with 10 or more TFLs. This team's been a problem all year, and I expect that to continue here this week against Arweva. And then my dog going with Woodbine in a top 10 matchup right out of the gate. They get to go to Audubon. Audubon's had a really good year. Woodbine, though, I think this is a sleeper in terms of a team on the road that could qualify for the Dome and make it out of their pod. Looking to rematch with Remsen if all goes correctly. Brody Pryor, the junior, he's got 27 passing touchdowns at this point. The team's rushed for 36 touchdowns and 8.1 yards per carry. They've also got Landon Bloom, the sophomore, 600 plus receiving yards for him and 17 receiving touchdowns. That's going to put his name on some record books in terms of Woodbine. The defense has been solid too. This is just a really good team. And Woodbine, this team's put up a lot of crooked numbers this year. Expect this to do the same. I think Audubon Woodbine is going to be absolute fireworks. Expecting high scoring, expecting a close game. But I like Woodbine in a mini upset here on the road. So that's all we got, folks. 36 minutes later, Hawks and Dogs for the playoff. Again, on Rockfin later today, we will get playoff picks out for each and every game. Version 3 of positional rankings drop tomorrow. Yeah, IAfootball, social media, we're going to have scores all Friday night. Tons of crazy stuff coming your way. It's only going to get wilder and wilder. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.